So I have this grade 5 titanium sheet, 6Al-4V, and it's 050. I've got a lot of these, and I just made a fixture to bend them into this shape. These are designed to go inside of a bicycle tire, so that's like a 4.5-inch radius, and it's got little wings on the end there. So I just thought I'd make a YouTube video to show the fixture that I made that accomplishes that, because it was hard to make a fixture for this stuff, because this stuff sure doesn't want to bend. So this is my fixture. This is a 5-ton press. These pieces here kind of looks like a Stone Age type thing, but here's the fixture. These two 1-inch rods are right next to each other, and then these two rods are separated by this distance, which can push in the titanium sheet. So what I do is I start by putting the sheet in this one here to put a large curve in it, using this rod or other rods depending on how my curve is going. And then I use this at the end to put that defined wing on either end. This part's easy. Getting the defined curve along the main part is a little more challenging, so I'll show you how I do that. So here's the 050 sheet. I'm going to put it in there. I'm working with these two right now, and I'm going to use different size pipes to put on a 2.5-inch radius on this sheet. This sheet is really hard to work with because it doesn't want to bend. So what I'll try first is this 2-inch pipe, which I put duct tape around it because I didn't want to contaminate the titanium sheet too much, because I'm going to weld it later, and I just want to try to keep it clean here. You can see I'm going to have to use a different fitting. This fitting goes down too far. Get rid of this fitting. And use this fitting to press. All right, then I put this so I don't have to push the press down so far, so I make sure this is square in there. Now I'm just going to take these two here. So I don't have to press the press down so far. Okay, so I definitely make sure this is square, and I will start out by centering it. If it's not centered, it's a total disaster. So I'm just eyeballing the center here. The first bend that I'm inducing, I'm using this 2-inch pipe, which is very weak steel. If I put on more than like 5,000 pounds of pressure, the pipe will bend. So this is what I've got now. I've got the fixture there with the sheet on it, 2-inch pipe, which will be the first thing to bend, and then putting on some pressure. So I'm going to do it all the way down until the pipe starts to bend. Okay, so now it's stopped moving, and at this point I've got 2,500 pounds pressure. I've got 3,000 pounds pressure, and any more pressure on at this point would bend my pipe. So this is the bend I've got. It's not very much. So when I release this grade 5 titanium has a memory. I wanted to go back to being flat, but I like that bend. I'll do it again. Symmetric about the middle. And we'll see what kind of a curve I can get here. So I'll put the sheet in the middle of that rod. Trying to get a consistent bend here. And I definitely want to make sure that it's squared up, because if it's not squared up, you get terrible results. This is what I have now. I put the pipe more over there, more toward the end, and I'm going to crank it down all the way, right up to the point where I would be bending my pipe. So I can see it moving, moving, moving. At this point, the titanium has stopped moving. I've got 4,000 pounds pressure, and at this point, there's no point in cranking the hydraulic press anymore. It would just bend my pipe. So let's see what sort of a little bit of a curve I've induced on my 050 titanium sheet here. A gradual curve, but I do like it. So now I'm going to do that symmetric on the opposite side. Hoping to eventually get to the curve that I'm looking for. So I put that right where it was for consistency. Make sure it's straight. Going to double check that it's straight again. Okay, so that is, it was not straight. All right. So I'm going to go press this down and see how I did here. Trying to do the other side the same way I did this side. So I've got it set up to there. And I remember that I had cranked it down all the way to 5,000 PSI, where it started to bend the pipe. I'm not interested in bending my pipe. So I'm just going to crank it down here. I see the titanium is still moving. Now the titanium sheet has stopped moving, and it's at 4,100 PSI, so I'll crank it down a little more to the same, which was 5,000 PSI. And then I've got this, which you've seen is just going to induce a gradual bend. Let's see what I get there. This is the bend that I put on it. And I like it because it's consistent and it's symmetric about the center. That's really important for this project. I like that bend really well. Let's see if it's the right bend for what I'm looking for. This is a 4.5 inch OD pipe, and this is the sheet on the pipe. It does not have enough of a bend. It needs more of a bend. So I need to do what I just did with a smaller pipe or rod. So I've got a bend on it, but it's not enough. This 2-inch pipe, going into these two rods is not giving me enough of a bend. I do have like a 1.5 inch pipe, which I will try. This pipe has been bent and crushed, So I'll just be consistent about using one side. So I'll mark a side that's up. So let's see what kind of a bend that puts in it. That'll have its own video. So what I'm doing in this video is I'm using this smaller pipe to try to induce a larger bend in my grade 5 titanium sheet. This bend here was induced using a 2-inch pipe, and it's not enough of a bend for what I need. So I'm going to use this pipe here and see if that gets a bend. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I put it in square and centered. I'm just going to eyeball this. It's got a low point there. All right, so that is square and centered. And I'll bring the camera around to show what I've got here. I'm going to repeat out loud that it's very important that it's square and centered. This is what I have. I've got a fixture made with a 1-inch rod, 5/8 plates, really tough fixture. I've got these rods which I can induce different angles in the sheet that I'm trying to bend. Right now I'm using a very weak plumbing part to try and induce a bend. So this is what I have. It's centered there. So let's see what kind of a bend I get out of that. Hopefully not too much of a bend. That's probably looking like it might do too much of a bend. So there's not appreciable pressure on it. This is what I have here, and I'm thinking that's too much of a bend. So I'm going to take a measurement here and only bend it down that much. The tie sheet is 668 thousandths above the fixture. So let's see what kind of a curve that gives us. I'll have to remember 668 thousandths. Looks like it didn't change it. It's a nice even curve. And I put it on my finger. No, that is good. That is perfect. So I'm going to do that here and here and see if I've gotten enough of a curve there. So I'm going to be real consistent about where I put this thing. This is on the one side. I'm going to do this in the center and then on either side. So now I'll take this down to 668 thousandths. See if that's getting me any kind of a big curve here. Got a little bit of ways to go. Still further to go. So that is it's about the same. So let's see what kind of a curve that gave us. Trying to just make small incremental increases in the curve because I don't want to deal with having made too much of a curve. Okay, I don't see if that made a difference. Not making any sort of a difference. That's a nice curve. That's what I'm looking for. Not sure if that smaller pipe did anything drastic, but I was looking for incremental changes. Definitely got the right curve going across the top. I'm not sure if that last step accomplished anything, but going incrementally is good. No, that didn't do anything. So I'm going to need to go a little more, because I do need a little bit more of a curvature there toward the end, so that it wraps around the pipe and gets me the right curve. So I'm going to have to push it down further. So I'm going to put this out where I can see it really well. I'm making sure to stay consistent about where I place the sheet on my fixture. This is what I had done a minute ago, but now I'm going to push it down further. Before I was doing 668 thousandths. Now I might get some kind of a spacer, like a 5/8 spacer. Maybe a long socket. Let's see what kind of a socket here. That has gone down further. How far did I push it down? The distance between the bottom of the sheet and the top of the fixture is 534 thousandths. So I'm going to take that down to 1/2 inch and then use a 1/2 inch spacer. So I'm going to stop the video and then make a 1/2 inch spacer and then see what kind of a curve that induces. So I cut off a little piece of 1/2 inch bar to set in there to stop the press from going down any further and establish a consistent end to the press. So what I have in there now is the titanium sheet in there square with a 1/2 inch stop. That is a 1/2 inch spacer at the bottom. So I'll crank this down and see what kind of a curve I get. I'm going to crank it all the way down to the bar. There we go, it's all the way down to the bar. 4,000 pounds of pressure, and you can see it's putting a curve on that sheet. I don't think there's any point in pushing any further. I'll push further anyway. So there's the 050 grade 5 sheet being pushed between two 1-inch rods onto a 1/2-inch bar with this pipe here, which I will measure later. I would guess it's 1.5 inches. Okay, see what kind of a curve. What is the result? So it's a big curve. That's definitely a difference there. So if I examine this piece, I don't like it. First of all, it's been contaminated by any number of steel fixtures and things pushed up against it to completely contaminate the titanium. So when I make the production pieces, I'll have to protect that. And this is an example of something which does not have a consistent curve. That curve is not consistent. I will make it consistent, and then if I put it on here, that's about the curve I'm looking for if I could get it to be consistent. So I'll keep hammering away at this and just do things consistently and then see what kind of a curve I end up with. So here's what I'm doing now. I've already been bending on the sheet, as you can see, and I've got the middle of the sheet, gonna put this curve in it, which is gonna be consistent because I have a 1/2-inch spacer, and I'm claiming that that's centered and straight. So let's see what kind of a curve I get. Here I have some interference between the press and the sheet, so that's completely unacceptable. I'll have to find a different way to press it in. So what I'm doing now is I have the 050 grade 5 titanium sheet, which I've already been bending on a little bit, just trying to get a consistent curve. I've got a fitting for the press, which isn't going to interfere with anything. Got my 1/2-inch spacer down there. This is not fixed. These are all fixed. I'm working with these two rods. I'm claiming that I had that centered, and now that I see it's not square. So I'm going to fix that and then do a press and see what kind of a curve is the result. So this pipe that I'm using to press in isn't taken very well to that hydraulic press fitting. But I've pushed down a lot. I could do it more, but I don't want to risk bending the pipe. I am going to do it more. Take it up to 5,000 PSI. I'll bend the pipe. Yep, it's starting to bend the pipe. So that's not good. I'm going to have to get some larger rod. So in any case, we've got it bent now against the spacer. And let's see what kind of a curve we get. See the pipe getting abused. That is a huge curve. That is too much of a curve. So I'm going to have to use a higher spacer. When I do put on too much of a curve, I put the curved piece in my bench vise here and crank it down a lot, and that obviously reduces the curve. Here's what that looks like. that takes it back more in the vicinity of the curve that I want, and that one does look serviceable. So if I just get a higher spacer, I may be well on my way. So now all I have to do is put on some of those wings on the end, and this piece will be ready to go. Here's the piece being fit on the pipe. See if we've got a consistent bend. That is serviceable. Let's see if it's consistent on the other side. It's a little asymmetric, so that's not impressive. So I'll just call that acceptable and then put some wings on the either side. So this needs to be replaced with some, says 1 1/4 inch. Probably want to get some 1.5 inch rod. If the local steel has, if my local steel has 1.5 inch rod, and this is what is working well, is when I put the sheet in there as close to I can at the edge of this 1 inch, I don't know if that's 5/8 rod or what. It's going in between the 2 inch rods. Give that a big old push and I'll get a nice looking wing on it. Very consistent. And I noticed when I was doing this that when I push to a certain amount, which is not extreme, it pushes the wing up against this, and that's when I stop pressing. Because I wouldn't want to press more now anyway, because I wouldn't want to abuse this side over here. So I'm just going to stop pushing there. This thing set off a little alarm saying stop pushing. And this is the wing that I got, which I like the looks of that. Cold forming this stuff that's real stubborn about bending. So this is pretty easy to put that nice looking wing on. If I could just figure out a way to consistently get the main bend, I guess I'll go to the steel yard and look for some 1.5 inch rod. So when I put this in, I definitely make sure it's as far out as possible and square. This is the biggest success that I'm having. This definitely works. And I don't know how many times I'm going to keep showing this, but that is the titanium sheet pushed all the way as far as I can against that rod and square. And it makes a nice consistent bend. So you see when I push it like this, the end of the wing is getting pushed up against my hydraulic press part there, and it touched. So that would be a signal to stop pushing. That's nothing extreme there. And I hopefully that'll get me, that'll be the last step for bending this part. Yep, I like it. Nice even bend. It's the proper radius. Eyeballing it, it looks like it's square. There's the other side. That's going to be plate armor for a fat bike tire.